I knew my hours were running short. So I had to streamline them and hopefully stay on focus, because my goal was to finish the week by getting all the way back to Atlanta. Depends on the dispatch, of course, but that was my goal, and I really wanted to be able to do that. So I left. Last time I spoke with you, I told you I was going to be driving north and then taking a bunch of back roads. In the middle of the night, it wasn't a big deal. The roads, they dropped down to like a speed limit 35. For the most part, though, they were up in the 55-mile-an-hour area. Sometimes they got up to 60. But because it was in the middle of the night, it wasn't horrible. So I didn't mind it. It was actually, a pretty peaceful ride. And there weren't very many people on the road. I did see a few police officers that were just looking to get a hold of somebody who was speeding or something like that on those back roads at that time. But, I wasn't, so no big deal. I usually plan to go no more than about 3 miles an hour over the speed limit. That can be problematic if you set the cruise control and you're going downhill. At that point, you need to kind of ride the brakes a little bit. That way you can make sure that you don't exceed it. But then that means sometimes it means that your cruise control will jump off. So either way, you gotta deal with it. Wasn't terrible though. I was hoping to get there by 6 a.m. I ended up getting there by 6:30, and the only people that were there when I walked around the building to the front were a bunch of the drivers that are taking the individual trucks out that drop off the pods at people's houses. So I went in the front and I said, "Hey, here to drop off." And the guy kind of gives me a grin. He says, "Okay, well, the guy will be coming in at 8. I'm like, "At 8? So and he said, "Yep, he'll get here at 8. And I'm like, "Okay." He says he might get here a little earlier, but maybe by 7:45, 7:50. But yeah, we don't start loading and unloading semis until 8. I'm like, "Okay, great." So I went back in the back, loosened all my straps. Well, actually, I broke all the straps, so that way, because I just had to drop off, the one pod and then continue on over to where I was going. And at that point, I really didn't have anything to do, so I went ahead and logged off of my tablet and went into off-duty sleeper, I think it was. Again, trying to save the hours, because I was fully assuming that I would be driving, hopefully driving back to Atlanta, knowing that my if I could get there on the weekend, then I would come back early. So if I could just get home by Saturday, Pods doesn't work on Sunday, so I could drop off something on Monday, but it'd be better if I could just get home on Saturday, drop something off on Saturday. But I knew that was going to be pretty optimistic. But I went ahead and sent a message in saying these are my hours. I look pretty good, like in pretty good shape enough to hopefully get where I'm going. And I said, hook me up with a pre-assignment. And so after I was loaded up, the guy got there, and even though I was very, very nice to him, he was a little short with me. It might have just been his personality though. And I loaded up and I hit the interstate and got up to, where was that in Virginia? I forgot. It was, I forgot where it was, but I dropped off at this place that I dropped off at in the past. And then there's a pilot only about 6 miles away. So I was like, okay, I'm going to hang out close, because by that point it was like about 1 when I did that drop. And I just had this gut instinct that if I hung around there, wasn't going to get a pre-assignment. But if I left, then I would get a pre-assignment. So I went to that pilot around the corner. I think it was too close is what it was. I backed into a spot and just hung out there and waited, off the clock, of course. And someone told me that it's a Schneider policy that if you are actively working in your shift, and not actively working, somebody told me that it's Schneider's policy that you should say logged in for insurance reasons. So if it's in the middle of the day, like when I got to that customer location, and it's like 6:30, I'm trying to remember who told me that now. I think there was it was online. It was in a Schneider driver forum. They said, no, it's in the Schneider handbook. So I've tried to find that handbook. That afternoon, I called the OSR group. I tried texting the person that I have from the Hunt group, which is this extra resource group for like drivers in their first 90 days. I'm still barely there. Almost hitting 90 days. I'll hit 90 days in 2 weeks, which will be nice. Not that, you don't get a bonus or anything like that. Actually, the closest you get to a bonus is if you're hired before 60 days before the start of a new quarter, and you keep a safe and fuel efficient drive. Your score, you have this score inside of Compass, which is one of the programs that we use here, that basically keeps track of different things and metrics, and we can use it to go to Horizon for training, and we can look at paychecks and things like that. But if you look at mine, it's a 5 out of 5. The little bar is maxed out, so that should mean that I'm eligible for a 3-cent raise next quarter. But the quarter starts a couple of weeks in. So it says that as long as you were not hired, you get it if you were hired within 60 days of the new quarter. And the new quarter would start in October. Now, technically, I was a new hire in mid-July. I did ask. I said I was hired in mid-July, but I didn't get on the road by myself until the 10th of August. So which counts? And they said, no, if you were a Schneider employee, you should be getting it. I'm like, all right, cool. So as soon as my paychecks for that new quarter started popping up and the check, it wasn't on there, I was like, so where's my bonus? And they said, oh no, it can take a couple of weeks. I'm like, okay. Anyway, so I was trying to find someone who would have a copy of the handbook, so I could try to look up that policy. It might be an insurance thing. I've known other industries that have insurance related things that you have to follow to make sure that you are covered if you're at a customer site. And so you have to stay on the clock. I've run into that before. I don't know if it's that way for Schneider, if you park in a parking lot and whatever. I'm trying to get a hold of the handbook though, but no one I contact says, oh, I've never seen it. I've never seen one before. So it's like, what's the secret about it? It's just being held where only a couple of people have it enclosed behind closed doors, and they're like, no, we will keep this handbook and use it when we want to throw a policy at somebody or tell them it's company policy. I would like to read company policies. I like reading that kind of stuff because it's going to educate me on what is acceptable and what's unacceptable, what's expected behavior, that kind of thing for a company. I know a lot of people that watch these videos are probably saying, man, you're just a rule follower. Yes. Yeah. I did a video a few weeks ago talking about how I follow the rules. When I'm driving down the road, I don't play with the radio. As a matter of fact, I tried to connect up my phone to the Bluetooth on the radio one time when I was stopped. Truck has different ideas. It's just not going to do it. So I use my Bose Soundwear companion around my neck, and there's only one button that is a pause play. So as soon as I'm stopped someplace, I'll queue up whatever the next video or audiobook or whatever it is that I'm listening to, and I hit pause. Because basically back there, up on this upper level, there's a shelf, and I put my charger on the phone. I turn on my Waze just so that way I get the points for driving the miles, and then I will hit play pause. Actually, I have to do it this way because these 3 fingers will instantly go to those buttons, and the middle one is the pause and play button. So anytime there's anything like, I will get on the road as soon as I'm on a straightaway and it's all safe and whatever, I'll go boom and hit it, and so that way I can play whatever it is. And I don't think that would be an issue for Schneider, simply because I've had the thing for years and I know instantly where it is. And if it doesn't work, I'll give it a few moments and then I'll try it one more time. If it doesn't work, then I'm not going to sit there and futz with it, because there's probably an issue with the phone, or it's not going to unpair, but there's some sort of an issue. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to drive down the road. If I find a rest area that's 20 or 30 miles down the road, I may go ahead and jump off. If I want to listen to something, I might get it fixed and then jump back on. But for the most part, it works flawlessly. Now the reason I'm mentioning this is because yes, I follow company policies, and I have no problem doing that. Company policies are there for a reason. It could be that they had a multi-million-dollar lawsuit for certain distracted driving related things, and they want to make sure that does not happen again. It could be that, the same as they say in their what is it? Their core values and beliefs, or whatever it is. That's the term they used it when I was working at Earthlink 20 plus years ago. But they say safety first. And I believe that. I believe Schneider is a very safety-minded company. I don't think they want anybody to get hurt. I don't think they want people to drive unsafe or anything like that. And I'm not going to do anything to besmirch that reputation. If I can help it, I always try to stay focused. And if I look ahead and I see scanning far and wide, smart. If I scan far and wide and I happen to see red taillights come on, I will hit pause. That way I can stay focused and not listen to whatever it is. Plus, I'm not going to be listening to it anyway. Might as well pause it so that way I'm not losing whatever it is I'm listening to. And then I will start watching it and making judgment calls, and usually slow down at the same time. So, and then once I realize there's nothing going on or things are clear, I'll go ahead and turn it back on. But it does not require me to take my mind or my eyes off the road. I literally put my hand there. As soon as I feel all three buttons, I just do this because I know exactly where the thing is. It fits on your shoulders. Anyway, could not get that handbook for anything. So I'm sitting there waiting for a job. 3 o'clock rolls around. I'm like, well, I'm not going to drive out today. 4 something rolls around. Pre-assignment. Cool. So it's a pre-assignment picking up at the same place as I was at. And I'm going to be driving from there back to Greensboro. So it was the exact opposite commute as to where I just went from the day before. So I went from where I was to Greensboro to that town in Virginia. Chester? I know I stayed overnight at a Pilot in Colonel Heights. And so the next day I picked up at that location when they got there at 8 and loaded me up. Actually, that location would load me up at 6. So I got there and the guy was there. He loaded me up and then I hit the road. Got down to Greensboro. I had already put in my ETAs and then I put it in to get all the way to Charlotte because that was my next stop. And that was just straight down. That was an interstate drive, which I love. And I got down to Charlotte and then it was jumping on back roads, mainly Highway 74 with a short little area where it's a Interstate 74 corridor. And then it goes back to US 74. So I did that, and earlier in the day, like when I was driving to the first location, I got a critical event roll stability. All right. The sign said speed limit 25. And I started I always slow down for the speed. And as you can look at the tablet, you can see how tight the turn is. You can also see when it starts to loosen up and starting to straighten back up again. And you can also look in front of you. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you look in front of the road. But if I'm doing an area or a turn I've never seen before, I'll glance at the tablet just to see how tight the turn is. I always keep it on the same zoom, so I know. And as you get down near the end of the turn, at the end of the turn, it merges straight in. I knew this from the day before when I went there. So as you get down to the end, it stops doing the tight turns and it starts just going more, more straight. And so as that started happening, I started accelerating. And when I pulled onto the road I was on, and there was no one there because it was early. There was nobody there, so I just went ahead and merged right in there and was driving down the road. About 30 seconds after I was hitting the straightaway, it says roll stability. I'm like, what? It must have been something to do with that exit. But the thing is, it didn't feel like it was too tight. So anyway, as soon as we got to the afternoon, I left Charlotte and I got this message: safety, call us and talk to us about something. Find someplace safe and legal and call us. I hate those messages because they pop up and all I want to do is handle it because it's one more thing I got to deal with. But I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to drive until I find a truck stop. And from doing a load securement check, I found one truck stop that looks like it was also a Schneider drop yard. But I drove there the next day and found out it wasn't. It was actually a gas station that closes at like 9 p.m. And it was on Highway 94 in Maxton, I think it was, North Carolina. But the place that I ended up finding, as I was driving, I ended up seeing a sign for a 1-9. And so I said, oh, 1-9, I know that place. So, 1-9. So it's a truck stop. I pulled off there and went ahead and called and talked to him. He said that, so if you're not familiar with what a roll stability does, the truck actually absorbs a lot of the lean and handling issues. So it's like old school trucks and stuff, you felt everything, but new trucks, they absorb a lot, so you don't feel it. So some people feel it's a discredit because you don't feel the truck feeling like it's leaning a lot or something like that. But when I drive, I make sure that it feels like if I were to hang a string or something like that here, it wouldn't be like swinging all over the place, hitting walls and whatever. It might just be rocking out and rocking in as I make the turns. Because that would be a safe turn, if it just gently goes out as you make your turn and then smooths back up. So anyway, so I got them on the phone. I spoke to a guy I've spoken to in the past. He's very knowledgeable, named Bill. Very knowledgeable. He was a driver, and he said that the truck absorbs a lot. He says, all right, so here's the thing. You accelerated at the end of that turn. I said, yeah, it started straightening out. He said, the thing is, if the turn is that tight and you accelerate through, if we know that's a speed limit 25 turn and you accelerate too fast and you're still turned, it's going to trip the sensor or whatever and say, hey, roll stability. Just because it is going to acknowledge that even though you don't feel the lane, that it's still there. Okay, that's annoying. Because at that point, it was not tight anymore. So I was accelerating because it was a straightaway. Whatever. I say whatever, not out of defiance, but whatever as, okay, whatever computer. I know I'm not driving unsafe. I know I pay attention. I know that whenever I see one of those things, usually it distracts me because I'm like, whoa, what happened? What happened? What roll stability? What was that about? And then I start thinking about what could I have done better or whatever. So anyway, that 1.9, like the other place in Maxton, that was in Rockingham, North Carolina, that 1.9 was closed. So there are no bathrooms, there's no porta potties, no anything. It's just a parking space. So there's no showers, no anything. I'm like, great. So I showered luckily at the Pilot that I stayed at the day before. But that 1.9, I was not able to shower it. And that really irritates me. Anyway, I called, talked to them, and then, you got to be creative and go to the bathroom. But you can't shower, so it is what it is. I got up the next morning, and I drove on to... Where is that place? Rocky Point, North Carolina, I believe it was. And they're a well-oiled machine. They're very, very good. It's a small location, but when you get there, they're nice. They go ahead and load you up, and they have some people that go out and drive the individual pods to people's houses, but they come in, I guess they stagger themselves. So they come in a little bit early, and they help you out by loading up semis. And then I guess they take turns or whatever else, doing the forklift. Maybe not. But it was one guy, and he said he was there for only a couple hours, and then the next guy comes in for his regular shift, and he's there most of the day. So I got loaded. I got my pods taken off, and about the time, at some point, I remember seeing a pre-assignment. And it was actually before I left that morning. I saw the pre-assignment. I'm like, oh, cool. Pre-assignment, where is it? And the pre-assignment, it says Conway to Atlanta, Georgia, and I have a big old teethy grin. I was like, Conway to Atlanta, Georgia. At that point, I'm probably going to have 9 hours left on my drive, so that's cool. At that point, because that was the day before when I was leaving Charlotte, I said, I'm going to drive all the way as far as I can and stop at some sort of a truck stop very close to my inn, because if I get from there and I go to Conway, which is about 2 hours, roughly, a little bit over, I could easily drive back to Atlanta in 9 hours. And if I do it quick enough, I called the customers and I verified that they could load me and stuff at 6 at the Rocky Point and then at 8 at the other location. So I said at 8, if I can get out of there by 8:30 and I hit it on the road, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, 6 hours. It's about a 5-hour drive, 5.5-hour drive. It said if you were in a car. So if you're driving a truck, you can expect it to be a little bit later. I was hoping to be able to put in an ETA for 3 p.m. They have offloaded me before when I have gotten there right at 3 or a few minutes before. But instead, no. That job ended up being that I could pick up from Conway. go back to Rocky Point, and then drive back to Atlanta. And I said, well, I'm not going to have a chance. I don't think it's allowed because no one ever covered it in training. And granted, I don't have a user manual or company handbook or something like that, but I'm pretty sure it's not advised for you to take 2 runs at the same time. You have your active load, you got to run that one. When you're done, you can pull over a pre-assignment. So even though I was leaving Rocky Point, going to Conway, and then going straight back, even though the company is all about fuel costs, and they sent out a message earlier this week that said, non-negotiable, you must stop at fuel stops. Which is interesting to me because they always tell us you're the captain of your own ship, but they still make certain requirements of us, like stop at fuel stops. Well, if I want to take one particular way and your fuel assignment is taking me in a way that I don't want to go, I have to do it, now. So I'm not technically the captain of my own ship, even though I am. I know it's probably a liability thing. They want to drive home the point that we're in charge of the truck, so we should definitely make sure that we are responsible for the truck because, we're driving a $100,000+ investment on the truck plus trailer. I don't even know how much these things cost, but I know they're not cheap, and they're trusting us to do this. And here I am, a new driver. They're trusting me to do it. So I understand that they're wanting to do things to streamline a process and whatever. I understand. I get it. All right. So, I went ahead and said, as soon as I was leaving the Rocky Point location, I said, okay, I'll see you in like 4 hours. And they looked at me kind of weird. And I said, I got to go do a drop in Conway. I'll be right back. So I got to Conway, dropped the last pod there. And then I picked up 2. And then I was picking up, those were 2 8-footers for customers. And then I had to go back to Rocky Point to get 4 7-foot green tags, and green tags are empties. They basically put a green tag as opposed to a lock on it, which indicates that it's empty and it's been checked out and in good working order. So I did that, got back over there, got my green tags, even though, believe me, I really wish I could have just loaded up in Rocky Point and then gone to Conway and then keep on going. But I got to follow the rules, don't I? Even if it's not a rule that I think is there, it just doesn't seem right because you can't log into the tablet and say, yes, I'm here, yes, I'm doing this, yes, I'm doing this, and follow through the checklist on the tablet. Okay, so I left Rocky Point and I start driving, and I say to myself, I'm probably going to drive. I've been driving all across America, and I keep seeing these signs for Buc-ee's. And all I want to do is stop because I see their ad for a 3-meat sandwich. I'm like, that sounds so good. I don't know what the meats are. Looked it up. It's sausage, it's brisket, and it's turkey. Sounds good to me. Not a huge turkey fan, but it's pretty bland, and I figure that they're supposedly really good brisket over there. So I was like, you know what? I got to try that three meat sandwich because I keep seeing it advertised on billboards across America. And I'll see signs for Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's, 1,400 miles. I'm like, really? That's a great advertising campaign. They are all about their brand recognition. So as I was driving back, I looked at the way it was taking me, and basically it cuts me on some back roads because there was a lot of back roads, and then jumps me on 95 south to I-20, headed back towards Atlanta. And I look at that and I say, that's where Florence is. Florence is the only town I know of that has a Pilot Flying J, some sort of a truck stop that I know of, right across the interstate or very close to a Buc-ee's. I keep looking right at it. I'm literally looking at the Buc-ee's right there. And that's all I wanted to stop at. That's all I wanted to stop at and try that 3-meat sandwich. That's why I stopped here. But fate, as it seems, had different plans for me. On my drive, I started feeling a little nauseous. And I was like, what's that about? So I was starting to wonder about it because I hadn't eaten a whole lot of anything that should be upsetting my stomach or anything. But as I was approaching hitting 95, and this stop is, and the Buc-ee's is only about, 40 miles, something like that, south on 95. About the time I was at 95, I start feeling really nauseous. And the FMCSA says that if you are sick or tired, do not drive a CMV. So I start keeping an eye on that, keeping tabs on it. And as I start to get close, I'm looking at exit signs, because again, following the rules, if I anticipate that I'm going to get sick or something like that, I'm going to have to pull over to the side of the interstate real quick, throw up or whatever, and then go to the nearest truck stop, wherever that happens to be. And it ended up happening, but not until I was pretty close to this Pilot / Buc-ee's. And so when I did that, I was like, crap, I'm like, the next truck stop is probably that one at this point. So that was me pulling over to the side in one of those 15-foot gaps on the side of the road that has a shoulder and stuff, and stopping there. Not the most safe of places, but I felt like the, stuff in my throat. So quickly I jump up, and luckily I had just finished some Cliff Bars and the box was in my trash bin. So I quickly grab the box, throw a regular bag on the inside, regular bag on the outside, and yes. You're like, oh goody, let's tell us all about that, Alan. So anyway, I went ahead, and as soon as that was done, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go on over to the Pilot. I don't know what that was about. And about the time I pull in, it was literally, you pull straight through, and it's the last space on the right. So that's where I pull across the handicap space and pull across to this non-handicap space right there. So I was like, that's great. That's perfect. I will pull up there, and it will be wonderful. I'll just stop. And I, at this point, knew I was not going to make it, because I'd been keeping track of my miles, keeping track of where I was going and stuff, and going back to North Point or Rocky Point, I knew I wasn't going to have the hours to get back to Atlanta. Even if I could get back to Atlanta, I would not be able to make my drop by the Pod's place, and I couldn't do it on Sunday, because not only would I be out of hours, but they don't work on Sundays. So I said I might as well stop and see how this plays out. And I'm glad I did, because I stopped, and I have, for about 24 hours, had a severe case of food poisoning. I say severe, it's probably not as bad as that. I've had bad food poisoning in the past. This hasn't been bad. The baddest thing about it is not being at your house, being in a sleeper berth, suddenly having a hot flash, starting burning up, you're freezing, and then you're burning up, and then you're freezing, and you're burning up, and then you're freezing. It's miserable. And then you feel like you're going to throw up. So I've been throwing up in that little thing over there. Then my stomach starts churning. I run inside of the restroom, come back out, feel like I got to throw up again. So back to the box. Anyway, I have been so exhausted. I have basically slept 16 hours in the past 24. Actually, I take that back, because I got up yesterday at 12. No, what time was it? When I had to get down to the north, to the Rocky Point and to Conway. I forgot what time. It was about a 3-hour drive, so I think I probably got up around 2:30. And I didn't bother getting back on the road after talking to the people about the critical event, because I knew I didn't have to, I knew that I was pre-assigned and I had to go back to Rocky Point. I wasn't going to make it home anyway, so I went ahead and stopped. I knew my hours were going to be bad. I would have to shut down for a 34-hour reset anyway, because it's a Sunday. Oh well, I would love nothing more to have been getting back to my family a couple of days early, but you know what? It's trucking life, isn't it? So, huge stomach cramps, miserable, and just non-stop sleeping. I slept, if I got up about 2:30, I slept 16 hours yesterday. I have a CPAP. Not because of my weight, believe it or not. Even when I was young, like I was in my early 20s, I was a martial arts instructor, and I was like flexible muscle at like 220 pounds, and I was built really muscular and just flexible, and I was able to do all the jump kicks and everything that you would expect. And I was in best shape of my life then. But even then, when I met my girlfriend at the time, who later I got married to, she was telling me that when I go to sleep, when I doze off, I stop breathing. So she's like, you might have sleep apnea. Well, it took me until 2019 to get a sleep study, because she's like, you're getting bad. It's getting worse. So I was like, okay, fine. So I tried it, and they said, yeah, you have sleep apnea. So I started, again, me being the person that follows the rules, I started following the rules on the CPAP and making sure that I follow those to the letter. And I did. So, So I always follow the rules on that. So I can look at the My Air app and see that I have slept over 16 hours in the past 24. And then today, I have slept probably another 4. Body is just overall exhausted. I went into the pilot earlier today when I finally was done throwing up and had been for a few hours. And I got some bread and some saltine crackers. I've only attacked the bread so far. Had a piece of bread about every 2 hours or so. And keep looking at the Buc-ee's, because all I want to do is go over there, but I know it's not wise. So I'm not going to. Sucks that by the time I finally was able to get over here to go to the Buc-ee's, not able to. So anyway, that's the latest. Tomorrow morning, I think my reset will be done just after midnight. So since the pod's location opens at 6 a.m., and it's about just over 5.5 hours in a truck, and I have a mandatory fuel stop that I must do in Madison, Georgia. I've already planned it out. I'm going to drive to this rest area that's about halfway, roughly. And then I will do the fuel stop at Madison, and that will take me to the pod's location. And I feel, I mean, you know, you can't drive if you're sick or tired. I don't feel sick anymore. I haven't for the past few hours. I'm still going to be eating the bread just to keep things light. But, you know, after you're sick and you've been heaving and stuff like that, your stomach is really sore. I have a stomach soreness right now. But that's not a big deal. It's nothing I'm not familiar with. I'm familiar with this in the past from having been food poisoned in the past. Here's the problem, though. There's a Wendy's in this pilot. And their Baconator is something I love. So whenever I do a reset, I love it when I can find a truck stop that has a Wendy's. Or a place that I can get a big, nice burger. The last time I stopped at a truck stop and did a reset a few days ago was the Northeast Maryland location, and going up towards New Jersey, or going south from New Jersey. I can't remember now. And they didn't have a Wendy's; they had a Denny's. So nothing like spending $15 plus for a burger that I didn't find to be miraculous. The Wendy's one is a bit cheaper, but the one at Denny's tasted like they inject it with water. Probably do. If you look at videos online, you can see that there are companies that make patties and then come in from above with a bunch of little needles on a machine, and they pump water in, come up and do that again. And it tasted to me like one of those where the juices are not real juice. The juices, I mean, I could be mistaken. But it felt to me like it was water. So anyway, all I want to do is go over to Buc-ee's and try and get a Wendy's Baconzilla. Sabotaged by food poisoning. So anyway, I'm going to get up in the morning, drive out toward Madison, do my fuel up. Hopefully I'll arrive at the pod's location at 6 a.m. and be the first person in line. We'll see. We'll see if I can get there. I mean, I should be able to get there, you know, around 7 at the latest. I don't need to get those last 2 hours, you know, out of my 8-hour drive. So I won't need to stop for at least half an hour someplace. I don't think, unless there's traffic on the interstate, which there could be. But from this location, I just have to go down 985 like 10 miles and then get straight on 20 and head back towards Atlanta. And that makes me happy because as of the time of this video, it is right now October 29th. And I happen to have home time scheduled starting on the 30th. So it means I'll be home for the last day, which, speaking to my family earlier today, they said they got pumpkins and they're waiting for me to get home so we can carve them. That's going to be awesome. We'll carve pumpkins tomorrow after they get out of school. Because I should be home by mid-morning. And that will be nice. Seeing my family, going to do trick-or-treating and Halloween and stuff with them. And then the next day, kind of get back in the mindset. I know I could technically stay out for 2 more days and then come back on Friday. But the way I look at it is there's 2 things. Number one is if I do that, if I come back on Friday, if I get a load on Friday, I doubt that even if I pick it up at 6 a.m., I'll be able to drop it before the day on Saturday. I want to be able to get another load. because I would love nothing more than to be able to drive over Sunday and deliver it on Monday, or at least use that time for lower traffic on the interstate. So that's the first reason. So that would mean that if I get home on Monday early morning, I'll have the rest of the day be with my family. It says Monday, technically a work day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'll be starting back on Thursday. So I would only be home for 2 days, full 2 days. Now you may say, why don't you just spend the whole home time? Because 3 weeks after, thank you, truck. Because 3 weeks after that, after I would return on that Thursday, is Thanksgiving. And if it means coming back a couple of days early and potentially getting myself back for my next home time just before Thanksgiving, if I could get home on that Wednesday, be off on Thursday, because no one's going to be, I don't think they're going to be dropping off pots on Thanksgiving. I don't think so. They might have holiday hours, and I don't know. But if there's a chance in the world of me getting home that Wednesday, spending Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then pre-assignment for Monday, I would love that. I'd love to be able to spend that time with my family. So if I come back a couple of days early, I can go ahead and drive, do 3 weeks, and hopefully I'll be able to get home before Thanksgiving. We will see. And this is not me manipulating the system. This is me looking at things and saying, I'm choosing to short my home time by a couple of days. Which you may look at and say, that's not good. You should spend your home time at home. And I should. But I spoke to my other half, my partner, and she said the girls have a lot of activities going on. So I wouldn't really see them much, and they have a lot of homework and things go. So it's not like if I was home, I'd be able to spend a whole lot of time with them. They're going to be actively working on some assignments. So I said, okay, I'll probably, have the rest of Monday off. I'll have Tuesday and Wednesday off, and then I'll try to get a pre-assignment for Thursday. So anyway, that's my game plan. All I wanted to do is have a Baconzilla and go to Buc-ee's. Sabotaged by food poisoning. I guess next time I talk to you, I will be back from my home time and be back on the road. Thanks for watching.